Ram. What can I tell you about Ram?
For me, Ram was someone who's hard to pin down, like figuratively and literally. But he was very clever and very kind and very concerned for the oceans.
Ram was innovative, enthusiastic, curious, and funny.
I would say that Ram was empathetic. He could imagine how terrible it would be for his kids to grow up in a world without sharks, or to be a parent that couldn't put food on the table because of a fisheries collapse.
I always remember Ram as somebody who was very warm, open to conversation. I have moments sometimes where I wish he was still in his office and I could just go say, Ram, I need to talk to you. I have a question. We need to have a conversation.
It's hard to describe Ram in 3 or 4 words, but I guess you've already heard about how he's a great scientist and really could pull the story out of a set of data.
Ram had an amazing ability to discern patterns in data. And I think he was such a good statistician because the rest of us didn't recognize the patterns like he did. And so he needed a tool to enlighten those of us who couldn't see data the way he did, to prove to us what he intuitively knew about what the data was saying.
Talk about footprint. He had a footprint, that was just massive. And I know a lot of people didn't agree with Ram a lot, but if you were Ram's friend, you were Ram's friend. And there was never any question about that, and if you were his colleague and he thought what you were doing was bullshit, he told you it was bullshit.
Ram was a pleasure to work with, and he really cared about his lab. He'd have grad students over for dinner all the time, and if you're looking for an apartment, he'd let you stay in his place. In my case, for a couple weeks, because I just couldn't find anything. And it was just really unusual for a professor to be so nice.
I remember going somewhere, some conference. He would drag his grad students along, whether or not we wanted to come, and we sometimes didn't know where we were going. But he was one of the few professors who brought his grad students and exposed us to all kinds of interesting things.
He also had very high expectations of his students and everyone he mentored. And that was as empowering as it was daunting at times. And it certainly influenced my career in the sense that it gave me the ability to trust in my own capabilities.
He would introduce me, he would say, here's my brilliant grad student. And I was like, oh, really? I had no idea that's maybe who I could be. So he gave me an incredible amount of confidence and believed in my ideas and my way of working. And gave me a lot of leeway to do what I needed to do, although I will always remember Ram said to me, because I had a bad habit of renovating houses during my PhD, that anyone could renovate a house, but only I could save the sponges. And to that day, that resonates with me.
He influenced my career by getting me more into statistical methods and fisheries, and I continue to collaborate with many of the members from our lab back at my time working and teaching with him at Dalhousie.
His enthusiasm for numerous branches of science, as well as his quantitative approach, were both a huge influence for me. He balanced theoretical understanding with empirical modeling, along with lots of graphs to guide data analysis. I worked with him on a number of studies involving the combination of data sets in order to answer broad questions, which I think was a very innovative approach.
It wouldn't be the same without having learned how to program using R, our statistical programming software. I took for granted that this is a skill set or a tool that everyone has used, and you find out that even if you feel a bit like an imposter using it, you still have pretty good skills coming out of that.
One of the many significant contributions that Ram made to science, I believe, was through his ability to support and encourage his students in a very strategic way. And there were many students. So rather than making replicas of himself, which would be impossible, he allowed them to each have their own research area and then advocated for them to become experts in their field.
Ram's confidence in me, I think, influenced my career and my career choice in actually feeling like it was okay to do where I felt like I needed to go. And sometimes when you're in your academia, you feel like that's the only place you can be. You need to publish papers, you need to do the thing that really gives you credibility as a scientist. And he made me feel that I could do what I needed to do to really use science for conservation. And so I will always forever thank him for that.
I always liked working with him because for me, some of the initial stuff we did on seabird climate change, shift in the marine food web, the pelagic food web, it was Ram that would just say, hey, look, that's what this is, you know. And so for me, it was just always a privilege. And he was just such a good friend. And he was just a bit crazy. I mean, you know, I always, I mean, what I remember about Ram, and I always ask, and I'm sure people had this experience, I say, hey, Ram, what about this? And Ram would go, and all he was doing, he was just changing file folders in his head, is what I think he was doing. And then after about 6, you go, oh yeah, I tell you, yeah, the answer to that one is. And so I kind of remember having conversations with Ram about that because his head was in so many dimensions.
His scientific legacy is huge. His technical papers continue to be well cited.
Ram was passionate about science, and ocean science in particular. He was a model of how science can inform decision-making for everyone's benefit.
We can use science to advocate for better action on the oceans, and that we all have a responsibility to do our best to keep moving forward and working together.
Ram always had hope. He always thought if you got all the data in the world and you could prove the answer to a question, then you could do something about it.
I think the onus of better use of science in decision making falls on all sides. Society at large, and especially decision makers, need to take an interest in science and perhaps make an effort to wrap their heads around probabilities and uncertainties, but also to learn to trust facts even when they're inconvenient.
I'm optimistic about the future of the oceans because, like never before, there are more people on the planet that rely on healthy oceans for food, security, climate stability, and prosperity. And people are realizing the impacts of their own actions and activities. So I'm encouraged by the number of people that are offering their own skills and perspectives to help increase awareness and to tackle important issues.
It's easy to be overwhelmed with issues facing oceans and fisheries these days, but I think just the idea that you can take the right information and do something with it is, for me, what Ram gave me.
There are a few days when I'm in my office at Dow where I don't find myself wishing that Ram would knock at my door and say to me, let's go for a coffee. Ram's passion for his research, his students, his wife, and his family are probably what left the biggest mark on me. He inspires me every day to try and balance those things. And to think big like he did, and to dare to dream.
Here at the St. John's Airport, I chose this spot because Ram and I spend a lot of time at airports and airplanes and flying to different places, spreading the word on marine conservation. And he would always arrive late and flustered. There were lots of things driving after him, but as soon as we were on our way, there was a feeling of visiting his extended family. He's a family man. He was very much about his actual family, but also he had a family all around the world of friends and colleagues who would look forward to seeing him and who are missing him dearly today. And going to these conferences and Ram kind of being overwhelmed by people greeting him and wanting to talk to him, it was a special way of connecting with people in the field, and I rarely ever saw anyone else being like that, whereas his colleagues and people who he was working with around the world were really like an extended family, and there was a warmth that embraced everyone, and it was wonderful to be part of that.